In early October, Devinah dropped their Twilight Whispers collection, which is their first collection of 2024. I picked up the shimmers that are in the collection. I haven't tried them out yet, but we are going to ice swatch them together in this video. This release was kind of like a palette release, but they released it in kind of like a different way. How many times can I say release in one sentence? There was the palette, but you would only get that if you purchased all 9 singles that go into that palette. The 9 singles were the 5 shimmers, which is what I picked up, as well as 4 mattes. We'll talk a little bit more about the whole release a little bit later. We'll talk a little bit more about the palette itself. But for now, I just want to dive into these because I'm really excited. I've had these in my possession for a little while now, and I haven't tried them out yet. Also, I just want to quickly mention that I have received some PR from Devinah in the past, but I did purchase these myself with my own moolah. So these are the 5 shimmers finally unboxed. And I'm really curious how I'm going to feel about these. I feel like I tend to prefer more like mid-toned shades, and I was most excited about this one in the center, which is Cinder Bloom, and the other 4 I was like, you know what, they might be a little bit too deep for me, but looking at them, I don't know if they will be. Let's start with the 2 deeper greens. Okay, the first one we're going to swatch is Thorn shade. I think I might have seen Deandra say that this was like the most popular shade from the launch, if I'm remembering correctly. Don't quote me because I might not be remembering correctly, but it's a really interesting shade of kind of like grayed out green, and it looks like it has a ton of sparkle in it. I do really love Devinah's formula, and I feel like even the shades that aren't the most shifty are really nicely formulated, and I tend to reach into them when I want something that's more of like a straightforward color. Okay, feels nice. Does look a little deep on my finger. Okay. Okay, that is pretty. Yeah, this actually looks a little bit more dimensional than I thought it would. It's like an olive shadow with some more grass green shimmers in it. And also when it's out of the light, it's like a deep brown that looks a little bit warm, but the green shimmer in it picks up pretty bright in the light. I think the color itself isn't necessarily my personal cup of tea, but I think it's done really well. It's really pretty, and I know a lot of you guys like greens way more than I do. So I think if you're attracted to the look of this, no complaints with like the formula or anything. It feels like the typical kind of nice Devinah shimmer quality. And then the other of those 2 like darker greens is called Bane Vine. I just want to show you these 2 next to each other because they do look pretty similar in the pan, but Thorn shade looks a little bit more sparkly, and I think Bane Vine might look a little bit brighter, right? This one feels a little bit more hard-pressed in there. Like, I wonder if Thorn shade is considered more of like a duochrome and this one's more of like a typical shimmer. I didn't check the way that they were classifying the formulas. Okay, yeah, seeing it on the eye, I definitely feel like that's the case. Thorn shade's a little bit more like pinpoint sparkly. Bane Vine looks a little bit more like a traditional shimmer formula. Personally, I think I do like the color of Bane Vine more because it's a little bit brighter. This one also feels like a grass green shimmer, but it's on more of like a deep forest green base as opposed to this like brown base on this eye. Yeah, I'm kind of like surprised by how different these are from each other, but I should have known that there wouldn't have been 2 of like the same shades in the same palette. And especially in the other lighting, you can see that Thorn shade is way more sparkly, and Bane Vine does have some sparkle to it, but it just doesn't pick up the light in the same way. Okay, this next one, which is Hexen Mist, also isn't my like typical shade that I tend to wear, but I am really excited for this. It looks so vibrant, and I feel like some of the brightly colored shimmers that were in the Sea of Shadows collection, I reach into those surprisingly a lot because for what they are, like a single color bright shimmer, they just do it really well. So I'm hoping that this one will kind of like fit into those shadows in my mind for me. This one does feel more similar to the last one, like a little bit more hard pressed, but I think it's going to be more shimmery than Bane Vine was. Let's see. Definitely it is. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Yeah. I feel like this looks so metallic, and I love how it stands off my face. I love shades like this that, like, no matter how far away I get, it's like, bam, a bright color on my eyelid. I'm wondering if I'm seeing like a trace of purple in there. We'll have to check it out in the other lighting, but even if there's not anything else going on, I like this for what it is. And this is what I was hoping it would be, like what I was saying a minute ago. A really brightly colored, nice, sparkly, but not like the most sparkly, but more sparkly than a traditional shimmer, metallic shade. Okay, this next one is Midnight Ritual, and this also looks really pretty. Again, a deep purple isn't my normal jam, but I see a lot of pink shimmer in here, which makes me feel like it's really going to be like livened up and brightened up by that. So I'm hoping that's the case. This one also feels a little bit more hard pressed. And I think just from looking at it here that maybe this is going to be the same formula as Bane Vine. Oh, interesting. Okay, I definitely like this one more than Bane Vine, but I do think the formula is on par with that one. It just feels like a little bit more of like a thinner shade. But does this one have more sparkle? I think this one has more sparkle than Bane Vine. And it has something a little bit more interesting going on because that pink sparkle in it is so apparent, and I really like that about it. It doesn't feel quite as deep dark on my eye as I thought it might. Of course, it does get a little dark where it's out of the light, but that pink really makes up for it. If you guys watched my Cleona video that I think probably went up recently about the 9-pan that they released with like their Halloween collection, it kind of reminds me of what I wanted that to be, but that ended up being a little bit more like dingy and dark. And this one does have more brightness to it. All right, cute. Midnight Ritual does look like more of the same, but Hex and Mist, I really like Hex and Mist, and I can see in more extreme angles a shift to more of like a dusty blue with like the tiniest hint of something pinky or purpley in there. I'm intrigued. Okay, so the final one, the one that I'm super excited about, is called Cinder Bloom. This one looks like a duochrome with like a bright green to like a rusty coral. I don't know, I'm so intrigued by this. Of all the shades, I wouldn't have rushed out and bought this whole collection had I not been doing a video about it, because I know myself and I know that like deeper shades, especially deeper greens, I don't tend to wear. And I don't think I would have placed an order just for one shade. I probably would have waited for like Black Friday or something, but I'm so happy. I'm so happy it's here with me and I get to try it on right now. I just like always kind of mentioning that and putting it into perspective that it's not necessarily normal to just buy the whole collection just to try it. I would have waited to see other people swatch the shades I was less sure about before buying them, and I would have waited for this one, but I know I would have eventually bought it. Okay, without further ado, this one feels similar, but it does come up a little bit more. Oh, that looks so pretty. I'm so excited. Okay. Yes, this is the one, guys. I hate when YouTubers say you guys, and I did it like 3 times this video, but I love this. That's so pretty. This is exactly what I wanted it to be because I love when duochromes are very different from each other, and this is like a straight up warm shadow attached to a straight up cool shadow. That's so interesting. And I definitely don't have a shadow like this in my collection. How did they do this? All right, let's get it on the other eye too, because of course this is going to be my look. I saved this one for last, so it could be the look that I continue wearing. And I don't know if I mentioned already, but like I don't have anything on my eyelids. Sometimes I will put on eye primer for the last eye swatch, but I didn't do that today. This is gorgeous. Oh, I'm obsessed with this. Just the brightness of it. It's so bright. That green is so bright. That oranginess is so bright. I feel like this is going to be a new favorite. The color of the sparkle in here kind of reminds me of Fairy Fire, which makes me think that Fairy Fire might make a good inner corner to pair with this. And then it just perfectly shifts into those like coppery, corally sparkles. And the sparkles are so sparkly. I'm curious if this one was more expensive or if all of them are the same price, because they definitely seem like very different formulas, and this one feels like a way, like a more expensive shadow than the other ones felt like. No, all of the shimmers in this collection were $8, including this one. Wow. That is something that I like about Devinah, because I feel like other brands might price shades because they seem nicer to be more expensive, which like is intuitive, and I wouldn't necessarily blame a brand for doing, but I feel like Devinah really prices them based on the like price level of the pigments that go into it, and this just must be the same price level as the other ones, even though to me it seems like so much more exciting, like worlds more exciting than the other shades. Okay, let me stop rambling. I'm just gonna put on a quick little look around the shade and we'll be right back to talk some more. And here is the finished look. I am a big fan of it. I finished the eyes off with just a matte transition shade in the crease. I used the same shade on my lower lash line, and as I thought I would, I used Fairy Fire for my inner corners. Fairy Fire is a little bit brighter than the green shimmer in Cinder Bloom, but I still think they look awesome together and I'm really into it. And for my lip, I haven't used a matte liquid lipstick in so long, but I bought some things from the Melt and Universal Monsters collab because I'm just into that kind of thing. And there is this Dracula liquid lipstick. So that's what I have on my lips, and I feel like this color is like my perfect red. The formula, you know, I think I am a little bit over the formula of the matte liquid lipsticks, or at least I have to get used to it again, but I feel like the color is awesome, and I really like the color red, this red lip with this like warm and cool eye. Oh, I like it. I swear I'm going to stop complimenting myself, but I just want to say that like this eye look with this lipstick, with this shirt, is just like, does it get better than that? So if you can't already tell, Cinder Bloom is definitely my favorite in this collection. I'm curious to see how the formulas are going to look next to each other in the swatches, because I just feel like Cinder Bloom feels like a more expensive eyeshadow than an $8 shade. It's so duochromatic, and it's so sparkly, and it's so unique. My next favorite shade in this collection is Hexen Mist. I loved the brightness of this one. I loved how metallic and bold it looked on my eyelid, and it seems like it might have a little bit of a duochrome in there also, but again, I like the color a lot and I don't necessarily need it to be a duochrome, but that's always fun. Midnight Ritual is my third favorite. I feel like from this point on, I don't know how much use I'm gonna get out of it, because even though I like the shadow, I just don't tend to reach for purples that deep that often. But I feel like Devinah's really been like satisfying my preferences in a lot of their more recent releases. Like they've had a lot of really pretty, sparkly, kind of like brighter mid-tone shadows. And I feel like this launch is more for like the grungy makeup lovers. So I'm happy that there is something that's like super for me in it, but I bet there's a lot of other people out in the world that this collection is going to be like absolutely perfect for, in the way that some of their past launches were perfect for me, you know? Number 4 is Thorn shade. This one was a nice formula. It was an interesting shade. It's just not really my shade, but I like the sparkles in it, and I like the like dark, warmish brown base and the lighter green shimmers. Oh, you know what? I just put Thorn shade in 4th place, but I think when they're on my eye, didn't I say I like Bane Vine more? I feel like in this moment I'm kind of judging them off the formulas, because I know that objectively Thorn shade is a much more interesting formula, but based on the shade, I do like Bane Vine more. Realistically though, I'm probably not going to be finding myself wearing either of them very much, just because, as I said, these more like mid-toned or darker greens, like darker than this type of green, I mean, when I'm saying darker green, it's just not my jam. I'm like very specific about my greens. I wish I had one more hand. Okay, this one here is Hexen Mist. This one is Aqua Abyss, and this one's Swirling Waters. So Aqua Abyss and Swirling Waters were both part of the Sea of Shadows collection, and in the pan they do look pretty similar to Hexen Mist, so we should compare them. Okay, so this one here is Hexen Mist, and we have Aqua Abyss and Swirling Waters. They are all certainly in the same family. I think Hexen Mist, this new one, is slightly more blue. The other two seem like they have a bit more kind of like yellow mixed into them. Like they lean slightly more towards green, but again, these are very slight differences. I always say that like the more I like a particular shadow, the smaller my how do I phrase this? If I don't wear a shadow very often, then there's a bigger range of what a shadow could look like that I'm like, oh yeah, those overlap. I don't need both of them. But if it's my favorite shade in the world, I am happy having really minuscule differences between them because I just like that color family, you know? So I would definitely say keep that in mind with these if you have either Aqua Abyss or Swirling Waters. Because if this is a shade you don't wear very often, these are pretty similar. But if this is your favorite shade in the world, maybe you would like to have all three. Or maybe you didn't purchase either of these other two from the Sea of Shadows collection and you've been waiting for something a little bit more blue to come around. That may just be Hexen Mist for you. And Midnight Ritual, I want to compare this to that purple that I mentioned that was from the most recent Cleona collection. You could see both of these have like the pink running through them. In fact, I think it's more obvious in the pan for the Cleona one, but I think it was more obvious on the eye for this Devinah one, which is interesting. Would these also look good with this red lip? Am I gonna have a red lip renaissance? Okay, so here's Midnight Ritual from Devinah, and then under it I'm going to swatch Liquidus from Cleona. So they do have similarities, but I actually like the formula of the Devinah one a lot more. You could see even like the swatch of the Cleona one just kind of like faded out. And there was something about it when I swatched on my eye, I just didn't feel like it was as like creamy and nice as a lot of other Cleona shades are. So if you're really into that color, definitely recommend the Devinah one over it. Okay, then for Thorn shade, especially knowing that it sounds like a lot of people are interested in the shade, I'm going to do a separate swatch of this so I can compare it to a couple of other shadows. So this is Thorn shade. This is Thalassic, which is one of their older shades, and I remember this one not being quite as like shimmery, but I like the colors in this. I think Thalassic is a lot warmer. These actually aren't. These are not that similar. Thalassic's also a lot lighter. I'm also going to swatch Asteria as well as Messier. Asteria, Messier. I love these two shades, but no, they are not similar to Thorn shade. Okay, I started looking into my other brands and I found Wall of Ivy from Cleona, perhaps. Okay. All right, that's a little bit closer, but it's still not quite there. That looks really pretty. Yeah, that's interesting that this Devinah shade is still darker than all of these. Okay, let's try Luxie Willow. All right, Luxie Willow is definitely the most similar. They both have like that brown base with like the same tone of green. The Devinah one is way more sparkly. This Luxie one looks more just like a shine in comparison as opposed to like an actual shimmer. And also, Luxie doesn't exist anymore. Okay, let's quickly touch on the rest of this collection before we wrap this up today. I'm gonna pop the picture up of all 9 shades together, the 5 shimmers that I purchased, as well as the 4 mattes that I didn't purchase. Recently, most of the mattes that I use are just kind of like neutral transition shades, maybe occasionally like a really exciting color to like put on my lower lash line or something, but I'm just not in the market for a bunch of darker mattes. Also, Devinah mattes aren't my favorite formula. I know a lot of people really do like them, but I tend to prefer mattes that are a little bit more hard-pressed than their mattes are. This was like a palette launch collection, and if you purchased all of the singles, you would get the palette included with your purchase, and they said that like they'll keep giving them out until they're sold out of the palette, basically. I'm like wiping off these swatches as I do this because I really like my shirt and I don't want to ruin it. I saw a lot of discourse a lot of interesting discourse in their comment section after they revealed the palette, because the palette was made using AI art. They did say that it was like commissioned through a digital artist, but at the end of the day, it was artwork that was created using AI. I'm not an expert on AI art. There's a lot of people that are a lot better equipped to explain the downsides of using AI art, environmental effects, the effects for original artists, the stealing of original artists' artwork. But those are kind of like, you know, some of the main arguments against using AI art. I hope the brand will take that feedback moving forward. I like to give people and brands the benefit of the doubt. It makes my brain a happier place to be if I'm not assuming that everyone's like trying to pull a fast one all the time. So I'm going to assume that the brand wasn't aware of the reaction to AI art. They weren't aware of the harms of AI art. And yeah, I hope that they'll take this feedback to heart. And in the future, instead of using more AI art, I hope they'll hire original artists who are making original art and not typing prompts into a computer, which is then stealing art from other artists who have uploaded to the internet. I know there are some people out there who were not purchasing from this launch because of the palette having AI art, and I think that's totally valid. Whatever reason anyone ever has from not buying something is a valid reason. But for me, I'm hoping it was just kind of like something that they'll learn and grow from, and we'll see in the future if they continue to use AI art, if they go down the path of like Ensley Rain, or if they go down the path of like Unearthly, who seems to have, I don't know if it's one or multiple artists that they continually work with and they make nice original art that people like for their palettes. I'm gonna wrap this up here. Let me know if you purchased anything from this collection, and if so, what you thought. Also, I should have mentioned this already, but I do have a code with Devinah. My code is just Hannah. It's not an affiliated code, so I don't make any money from them when you use it, but it does show the brand that my reviews have been helpful in you making your decision. But of course, no pressure or anything at all if you use it or not. Just make sure that you use a code if you're purchasing from Devinah, because all of the new shades from this collection are code eligible. I know some of their like most expensive shadows aren't code eligible, but these newer ones are code eligible. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. I also have a Patreon I'm going to have a link down below where I randomly select a palette every month using my single shadows, and then I also make some looks using those randomly selected shadows. Either way, thank you so much for being here. Bye.